If you're playing in a sports game, you have to go out to be pumped and be ready to charge and attack and see if someone's strong enough to put you in your place. So many athletes, many salespeople, a lot of people you have this aggressive quality. You see a forceful person, a forceful, if you know Mars is prominent in some way. If it's with the sun, it's an extra arrogance, it's an extra power, it's extra willfulness. It's really a strong competitive factor. So in business and things like in sports, that could be a really good thing. But for oneself, it's hard to be that strong and still be open and caring and nurturing and appreciative of people around you. So where do you recharge? Where do you get the energy? So usually you have to fight a good cause. Are we doing something noble or showing people how to do things and helping and channeling the stress into climbing the mountain, into doing it with a noble purpose, with your heart behind it. And if your heart is a loving factor behind it, your ego isn't necessarily. So you have to observe, is it the ego or the heart? Most people, you're running into the ego. See, I never thought I had an ego because ego was a fault, and I probably couldn't. I couldn't have any faults. Well, I got humbled and learned out of that one quickly enough. Well, not quick enough, but I had a lot of lessons to humble me around it. Just a joke, anyways. But anyways, the ego and the power and the glory. If you're just doing what you desire and you're just pushing for things yourself, you're living in a small, nasty world. If you're fighting good causes and you're fighting against in a good way and trying to help people in a good way and putting the extra stress to being working towards that, that's a very noble, heartfelt way of guiding your energy. So there's a bit of a puzzle between following your heart to direct your energy and learning from Jupiter to guide your energy. It is two different things. When they both come together, that's really special. But if you have the Mars Sun, there's a stress of this. This is something that can aggravate your heart or your muscle tone, or it causes an abrasiveness there. And that abrasiveness can come in any different way, but it'll be important to you. You're empowering the Mars with the willpower. It's force and willpower. That can accomplish great things. But it can also make one so arrogant or so pushy or bossy, they're not sensitive and can end up very alone because they didn't help anybody. So, okay, that's my take on this. I'm trying to bring a bit more of the spiritual challenges behind an aspect as I'm doing these classes. Not that I've got it all defined, but I'm just trying to do that so that it can be seen a little bit, because it's not just about measuring, oh, Mars is just aggressive, you're supposed to be powerful, you go for these things. It's partly true, but there's still real conditions on it. If strength hurts people, you'll get karma. If you hurt other people, there's karma. If you help other people, there's good karma. And it changes. But how do we choose to fight a good fight? When our heart's in the right place. It's an interesting poem, interesting puzzle. Okay, now when we get to Jupiter, Jupiter is the planet of the guiding light, the planet of understanding. Understanding the results of what you've done. Not what you want, it's understanding the results of what you're doing and what you've done, what you've put out into the world. How you have assimilated your experience. By the time you're 2 and you've stood up and you started to run, by the time you're 4, you're riding the bike, and that don't tell me you can't do it. I understand how to ride. I'm going to go where I want, but you can't go outside the yard. You can go maybe around the block sometimes, but what's right or wrong around what you're doing, the right and wrong, and the proper guidance of what's worth doing, what's not doing, that's Jupiter. But it's balanced against the Jupiter to the Sun, which is the power of glory, of love, of radiance, or just the glory of your ego. Here I am. What's Jupiter going to do? It's going to expand it. It's going to want to have all kinds of experiences around it. It's going to encourage Mars to go do things so you can gain more confidence for trying. Run that race, fight that battle, buy that car, take that trip, go do it. you'll learn from it. So Jupiter to the sun is considered one of the luckiest aspects, but it's one of the most arrogant aspects too. It exaggerates all the self-importance. I'm so lucky. I'm so good. I'm the natural king. Here I am. It encourages one to be out in the world more and think you understand things more and put your willpower into your understanding. Well, if you put your willpower into your understanding, that's an incredible thing. If your understanding is good, that's a wondrous thing. If your understanding is wrong, which is misunderstanding, there's probably more misunderstanding than understanding in the world, and more people using misunderstanding to guide their actions. So if Jupiter's conjunct square opposed the sun, there's going to be a struggle to understand what's right and what's wrong. Your understanding will not be, when it's conjunct the sun, you can be sure you're totally confident, but you could be wrong and still thinking you're totally confident, but the lessons will come intensely. It's lucky because you'll attract things, you'll go for it, you'll reach beyond when other people are still worrying in themselves. No, here's the doorway, let's go. So Jupiter's encouraging Mars, the sun's encouraging Mars, and when Jupiter and Mars align, understanding and self and one's purpose, one understands one's self-purpose. Wow, what a grace. But one's ego can easily say, I've got to get this, I've got to expand this, I've got to go this way, I've got to go that way. I mean, Hitler had to go take after Russia, so did Napoleon, and each one expanded too much till they collapsed and got beat. So going out too far. So Sun-Jupiter conjunct square opposition are often factors that can, not as much as the moon, but they still are factors that can affect weight or overindulgence or make you gamble or speculate too much or borrow money too much. And Jupiter can attract money, but if you have to owe it, then pay it back. You can get way more problems from Jupiter than you ever will from Saturn. Jupiter's trying to try this, try that. And it's guiding Mars, is trying to understand Saturn, understand the restrictions, and okay, the rules aren't there, you can get away with this now, you can go for this now, go for it. So there's a natural joviality or love of life to the Sun-Jupiter. Unfortunately, the Sun square, conjunct, or opposed, there's a capacity to enjoy too much, to indulge too much. Well, I mean, indulging is really a Venus thing, but I want this, I'm eating too much, I like this. But Jupiter, you're in a social gathering and there's a table, a spread of all this kind of food and desserts. Who's not going to indulge? Who's all there? It's part of the moment. So you have the food, you have the extra drink, you have the thing. So it's the abundant confidence. If the confidence is egocentric, it's the abundant ego. If the abundance is tied to your heart, it's wise, really, it's radiating wisdom and empowering wisdom. That's what it's supposed to do. The sun is giving its energy out, and Jupiter is supposed to pick up on the wisdom of the heart. Okay, that's the inner teaching. As we're dealing with things, it's easy to self-justify whatever you're doing must be right, even when you're wrong. Wow. Your self-justification, that's a Jupiter. I understand this well. I'm empowered, I could do this, it's okay for me, I'm right to do this. That happened, so I could do that. Like Jupiter pontificates or assumes it understands the best. And the sun empowers that. So when it's wrong, it's going to be big time wrong rather than in the middle. So that exaggeration, that excess from that stress, there'll be troubles with excesses and expansions when the sun is conjunct square opposed Jupiter. There'll be repercussions. And if you don't, and those repercussions are required, you can expand, but if you're doing things, you're going to have to work a lot to understand. You're going to have a lot of action to live up to what you're expanding to. So you're not going to have a lot of action if your Mars isn't disciplined by Saturn. If you don't have the sense of restraint or discipline, you're not going to have wise action. You're just going to be doing everything and not ending up having a lot to show for it. So a lot of people can travel. They get the wisdom to show for it, but they don't have the steady job or steady things. I mean, it makes it hard to have family, other things like the traveling is interesting, but it has repercussions. So when the sun is there, the will to travel, to be understanding, to expand, to want more, to want abundance, to revel in abundance, that's the sun. To be jovial about that, let's have a party. Wow. The confidence, my confidence can be, I understand, I really have great confidence. That can be another side. You're not going to have people with lack of confidence. No, their confidence is going to be too much. Exaggerated. that can create misunderstandings or one-sided understandings, which can make people either followers or alienate people who have different understandings. So a lot of, well, you have, in the world we have liberals and Republicans, or Democrats, Republicans, liberals, conservatives. It's not people, it's attitudes to life. And it polarizes things. Those are understandings. Different choices of how things should be. So even with the seemingly best aspect, the Sun conjunct Jupiter, it's more of a problem than not. It has benefits, but it's not just a benefit. If your understanding isn't wrong, you're going to really make a big deal about it. Everyone will know about it. But how many people have right understanding, or compassionate understanding, or integral understanding? It gets complicated. It's tied in the mechanics. It's tied into signs and the categories, the houses and the categories. But this factor is already there in all of these. So what happens, you try and be the Jupiter as much as you can be in the sign, the house, in being the Sun as much as you willfully can be in the sign, in the house. And just by doing those two things, there's a natural stress between this factor. There's a natural either going with it too much or feeling other people are there. Your understanding becomes important. Exaggeration is likely. The ability to gamble or to risk too much, or you wouldn't. I mean, someone could attract a lot of money. Say Venus is nicely aligned to it, could attract a lot of money, but someone could also spend abundantly and get in a huge amount of debts because of it. Okay, so how much expansion can you afford? How much expansion keeps your heart noble? What expansions don't? Who do you get along with? Who don't you get along with? Are you hanging around with a good crowd or a bad crowd? Are you working in the right place or wrong place? If your boss is doing something wrong, do you stay? What's right? What's wrong? Like, this is Sun-Jupiter puzzles with a tendency to purposely to exaggerate one's sense of importance and one's understanding. If that understanding is aligned to the heart, it's an abundant radiation of it. It's really a noble radiation, like a king or a queen. Ta-da! But one can feel one's a king or queen and not really be there. You need to be king and queen of your own world. You really need to live rightly and correctly if you have the Sun Jupiter. And if you do, you can be really positive, but there'll be struggles with it. If you don't, it will be negative and there'll be struggles with it.